a Jewish state. What happens if there is a 51% electoral majority for non-Jews? Can there still be a Jewish state? Should there be? The third question is about an issue, a law that's pending before the Israeli Knesset that would limit the rights of the many NGOs, civil society organizations in Israel to promote their cause. Does that law have a future? Okay. What's likely to happen?
Three great questions, and you're going to have to remind me of them one by one. Just the first one.
First one is passive,
right.
Peaceful, non-resistant,
okay.
non-violent.
Is there a future? Will it go anywhere? I think there's two sides to that. First of all, we are, if I've said maybe there already is a third intifada in terms of all these nonviolent resistance activities going on around Palestine, we are this close to a third violent intifada. We are very close. It could happen any day. Some of you may have seen, and it was covered on a lot of blog and websites, a piece I wrote after one particular harrowing evening in Sheikh Jarrah called Next Stop Armageddon. I want to remind you that despite some of the propaganda, neither the first nor the second intifada was planned. They were both started by accident. I think that although neither Israelis nor Palestinians want a third intifada right now, it'll be a disaster for everybody. We are this close. And it's not a matter of just convincing someone in the Palestinian Authority not to start an intifada, because intifadas start when you have dry tinder and a spark hits. And the dry tinder is there. You see, now, some of it may be the law of rising expectations. Remember, the Watts riots took place after the civil rights movement was already underway. And I think, again, I go back to that pendulum in terms of Obama's Cairo speech, even though there's all kinds of things you can point to that are objectively better for Palestinians in the West Bank today in terms of economics and these kinds of things, the anger and resentment is just growing and growing and growing, I think largely because of rising expectations. And in Jerusalem, I have just seen, whereas maybe 2 years ago, if the police came to demolish a home, people would cast their eyes away, they'd be seething inside, but they just figured we can't do anything, but there's overwhelming force here. Today, it doesn't matter how if there's large numbers of police officers with guns, they'll start battling. The anger, the frustration, the fury is that great, and when when you spend an evening, the best time to really understand Sheikh Jarrah is not to come to a Friday afternoon demonstration, as important as that is. It's to come and spend a night there, and the ongoing taunting and provocations between settlers, with sometimes Palestinians responding, and the tension, the pyromaniacs, the police who sit and watch and just let the right-wing Israelis do what they want and then pounce on any Palestinian that does anything a little bit out of line. You just see how ready, how ripe it is for that spark to fall on the tinder. And I am terribly, terribly concerned. One of the things that keeps me awake at night is that we were predicting the second intifada a year and a half before it happened. We saw the handwriting on the wall. Just as many Israelis were becoming disillusioned with the Oslo process when the Palestinian Authority was unwilling or unable to stop terror. Average Palestinians just saw the ongoing home demolitions and all the other human rights violations, and they just said, this is not a peace process. And from month to month, we heard that more and more Palestinians saying this is not a peace process. And we were predicting a year and a half before it happened. And we didn't succeed in conveying how serious the situation is. And I just don't. One of the reasons for that essay and other things I've tried to do is I don't want to be in the same situation where we saw what was about to happen and to say afterwards we didn't do what we had to do to warn people. The other side, of course, is so that whole nonviolent movement could fall apart if it gets overwhelmed by a violent movement. And the other thing that could overwhelm it is if the question was, is this a thing that could break down stereotypes by Israelis? The fact is, it's just out of sight, out of mind for the vast majority of Israelis. They hear a little, maybe Friday afternoon report on the radio. There was, which they've been hearing for umpteen weeks now, clashes between Palestinians and leftists and soldiers in Bil'in, and usually talking about, of course, emphasis if a soldier or a border officer was injured. They don't get it from that. It is incredibly important. Another thing that we need to do much more of is bringing groups to see these things. So just the week before I left, with one of these groups of one of these pre-army academies, the kids between high school and the army that we do these year-long courses on about Judaism and human rights and democracy, and we take them then on tours, and we took them to East Jerusalem, and just to see their eyes bulge. It's enough. It's one thing to hear about it, and maybe it's one thing to see some of it when you become a soldier yourself and you're looking at through the barrel of a gun. It's another thing to be there and talk to Palestinians and get this on ground level. The problem is that it's, although there is a growing alternative tourism industry of sorts, it's still a drop in the bucket because most Israelis are afraid, whether it be physical fear or fear of knowing about things they don't want to know about. And so one of my fantasies is finding more ways of bringing more Palestinians into Israel. We've got a group of dialogue group between Israeli religious leaders and Palestinian Muslim and Christian religious leaders. Some of these imams we're looking for ways, and some of them would like to come and speak in synagogues. It's an issue of permits and everything, but there's much more that has to be done. Second question was
compatibility of democracy and a Jewish state.
Of course, it's easier to have your cake and eat it too, as long as there's a Jewish majority, and at such point as there will be the number of Jewish and Israeli Palestinian citizens will become closer to parity, or even a Palestinian majority. Then there will be issues that we don't deal with right now in terms of can you be Jewish and democratic? And of course, at that point, the answer will be no. So from my point of view, getting back to my vision of cultural Zionism, I hope that we will get to the point where we can have the essentials of physical, cultural, and spiritual safety and being able to thrive without the apparatus of a state before we hit that point where you cannot be Jewish and democratic anymore.
The NGO draft law.
Okay. Many people here have heard me speak, and many of my colleagues in Israel kind of laugh at me as the last optimist. And for many years, I've come and I've spoken and I've been very optimistic, some might say Pollyannish, in terms of the possibility